This is brought to you by Colgate Total Active Prevention. Some routines make perfect sense, like securing your seatbelt before driving. Just as buckling up helps prevent injury, using Colgate Total helps prevent oral health problems like cavities and gingivitis before they start. So put yourself in the driver's seat of your oral health and prevent problems before they start with Colgate Total Active Prevention. Available at a retailer near you.
I'm Galen, co-founder of Brooklyn SolarWorks. With my Chase Inc. Business Premier Card, I get unlimited 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more. So everything we buy to run our solar business gives us cash back that we put back into the neighborhood, donating solar panels to community gardens.
Chase Inc. Cash back built for every business. Find the right card at chase.com/inc. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Cards issued by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC, subject to credit approval. Terms apply.
A pizza party can celebrate a birthday, a sales goal, or the end of a busy stretch at work. For some companies, it can also be the prize for reaching a certain number of days without a reported injury. That may sound like a safety win, but it can put the person who gets hurt in an awkward position. Speak up, and everyone loses out. But workplace mistreatment doesn't always begin with an accident. It can also look like unpredictable hours, unstable pay, constant pressure, or the feeling that your job is essential even though you're treated as replaceable and unskilled. There's a big difference between a safe and supportive workplace on paper versus in reality. Jessica Martinez is the Executive Director of the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, better known as COSH.
There are companies that will claim to have a safety culture, but incentivize workers with, a bonus, a pizza party, if they go X amount of days without reporting an injury. What we know is that these sort of programs really incentivize workers to report less. And truly what we are saying is what our workforce needs to do, we need to incentivize workers to report more to prevent these injuries and illness, right, in the workplaces. So if more workers are aware of the conditions of work, of the impacts to their health, then we're truly creating a safety culture.
The latest federal data counted more than 5,000 work-related deaths in 2024. That's one every 104 minutes. Private industry employers also reported 2.5 million non-fatal injuries and illnesses. But that second number is exactly what the government calls it, employer-reported. The reality is that national data doesn't fully capture what workers are experiencing, and that gap extends beyond injuries. Sometimes the harm shows up in the uncertainty and stress built into the job itself. Benjamin Lorr is a writer and the author of The Secret Life of Groceries. While researching the book, he spoke with workers in many segments of the food supply chain. He also took a job at a local grocery store.
I also worked at a Whole Foods fish counter for a short stint to just really get the experience of working in the store. And there are a lot of things that came out of that. One, probably most salient, was just how difficult the scheduling process can be for retail workers. I mean, I think most of us carry in our heads, if you haven't worked in retail, you have this idea that, of course, it's kind of a low-paying job. It's an entry-level job. But over the last 20 years or so, there's been a shift in how scheduling is done, and that kind of mimics the way that product shipments are done. So people are treated a little bit more like products, which is like highly in demand when they're needed, and there's high demand moments in the store, and then kind of obnoxious waste if there's a slow demand and told to go home.
For the store, that flexibility kept staffing close to customer demand. For the employee, it meant not knowing how many hours would appear on their next paycheck and not having a steady stream of reliable income to depend on.
When I was working, a lot of the people I was working with wouldn't get their schedule more than 3 or 4 days in advance. And the hours that you're working vary from week to week by large margins, 40%, which means that your take-home pay varies. And of course, because not just the volume of time you're working shifts, but when you're working, you can't get a second job to supplement that because there's no schedule, no coherent schedule for your second job to schedule around.
The worker is expected to remain available, but the company doesn't guarantee that the hours will be there. Lorr says this can leave employees functioning like on-call workers without the pay, stability, or respect that usually comes with that responsibility. As he moved further down the food supply chain, he saw conditions worsen.
What goes on to create that raft of privilege that the grocery store floats us on? There's an enormous amount of sacrifice going on at every single level. So not just the employees in the store who are working these low-paid, variable scheduled jobs, but at each level of the chain, there is a race to the bottom mentality that often results in cuts to labor. And it gets worse the farther away and the less visible you get. So at the lowest levels, people take advantage of that obscurity, that lack of visibility, and it enables the worst human qualities. And you get really, really abusive conditions, the type that is almost mind-blowing.
This broken system also extends past food production and into the distribution chain as well. Trucking is the primary mode of food transportation in the U.S., with 70% of all food being delivered by trucks. But for some of these drivers working around the clock, the industry has trapped them in a cycle of debt and manipulation.
So I drove around with a trucker. Trucking is a gargantuan industry, and many of the truckers I've talked with were trapped in a system of that they described as sharecropping on wheels. That was essentially a debt peonage that had to do with the burden of debt they took on to both get their trucking license and then to become kind of quote unquote owner operators of their truck, required taking on a lot of debt. And the companies would then manipulate that debt to prevent them from working for other companies and participating in a true free market, or just squeeze out their hours if they wouldn't accept rides at low rates.
In many cases, large companies rely on staffing agencies, contractors, and subcontractors for hiring, which causes confusion over who's ultimately responsible when there's an issue.
There is lack of clarity of ultimately who's accountable, right? You have these subcontracting systems that makes it very fuzzy for employers to understand ultimately who's responsible to ensure that workers have the equipment they need for safe workplaces, the training that they need, that there are mechanisms in place. Even in cases when workers are injured, they get the go around. Many of them have to rely then on government assistance. So there's a very toxic cycle of caring essentially for working people in this country through these supply chains.
Federal law prohibits employers from retaliating against workers who report an injury or raise a safety concern. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, commonly known as OSHA, also warns companies not to use prizes, bonuses, or disciplinary programs in ways that discourage reporting. But a right on paper doesn't always remove the fear of losing hours or being replaced. For someone who thinks their workplace is making them sick or putting them in danger, Martinez urges to start documenting and having conversations with colleagues.
The power of collective action is really true and offers just more protections in a real sense, right? It's harder to retaliate against a group of workers than an individual. So we always encourage workers to talk to their coworkers, agree and make a plan before they submit a formal complaint to their employer, but even to agencies like OSHA. There is a mechanism to submit complaints to OSHA, make sure that it's well equipped with photos, with evidence, with documentation, and do the follow-up so you can have an inspection. And workers can do it anonymously. Like I said, retaliation is a growing concern across the country for many, many workers. So do that. And then if there is a local COSH group or a worker center, or if you're a unionized worker where you have your union, speak to them, talk to them, reach out, let them know what's going on to get more support and guidance on how to move forward, with the worker's particular case.
A clean safety record, a lean schedule, and a low-cost product can look like everything's fine from far away. But from close up, it's the employees who carry all the burden, while corporate profits grow. To learn more about workplace safety, reporting resources, and our guests, Jessica Martinez and Benjamin Lorr, head to viewpointsradio.org. This story was written and produced by our executive producer, Amirah Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jay Silvers. I'm Gary Price.
I'm Sam, owner of Marino's Landscape. With my Chase Inc. Business Premier Card, I get 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more.
Chase Inc. Business Premier. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Cards issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC. Subject to credit approval. Terms apply.
There's a pill version of Ozempic.
Hello, I'm Ozempic.
And I'm other GLP-1s kind of like him. Hey, did I hear there's a pill version of Ozempic?
Yep, you sure did. Ask your doctor about which FDA-approved uses of the Ozempic pen or pill may be right for you. Call 1-833-OZEMPIC or visit Ozempic.com to view the medication guide and learn more about Ozempic semaglutide tablets 9 milligrams and Ozempic semaglutide injection 2 milligrams.
There's a pill version of Ozempic.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 boat insurer. We've all made mistakes on the water, but there's one mistake you shouldn't make: being uninsured. With Progressive Boat Insurance, you can choose coverage for most mistakes you or other boaters could make, helping you float carefree all season long. Quote today: Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. #1 rating based on 2024 filings with state departments of insurance.